Hello there, welcome back. So following on where I got to last time with Once Upon a Time in China 3, I thought I might as well carry on with the Jet Li. I will get round to 4 and 5, but we'll stick with the Jet Li Once Upon a Time in China vibe, and we'll have a look at Once Upon a Time in China and America today. And this was the film that saw Jet Li return to the Wong Fei Hung role, 6th in the franchise overall. And there's a lot of significance with this movie. There's a lot to say about it, so if I'm crashing through it really fast, just bear with me, there's just a lot to say. So of course directed by Sammo, and the last film he would direct until 2016, so he took quite a hiatus from the directing, like the director's chair. Sammo here. As I say, Jet Li returning, Soy Hark in the producer role, one of the last films Jet Li made in Hong Kong before he cracked America, so to speak, or went to America with films like Lethal Weapon 4 and Romeo Must Die. So, side note worth mentioning is that Lo Kao Wing was the second unit director here. Just a little thing I know, but Lo Kao Wing was very much on board as the second unit. As I say, I will review the 4th and 5th Once Upon a Time in China films starring Vincent Zhao. And it's worth noting as well that Jet Li did play Wong Fei Hung in a Wong Jing film during the gap called Last Hero in China. Again, another one I've got to get round to reviewing for you all. But that was that was a lot more of a light-hearted, gimmicky comic film. That is a review for another time. In many ways, the film was sort of close the lid on the Wong Fei Hung character, to go with a sort of a last hurrah and give it sort of a fitting end in a way the film series so richly deserved that. And if you recall back to my Once Upon a Time in China 3 review, there wasn't really an end as such. This film it's not to say this film even ends it that well either, to be honest, but it's sort of to have like to maybe just one last crack of the whip and to just see, to send a jet off on a good note, because like I mentioned, a lot of people don't like 3 as much. So this is more Sammo and Hark trying to do like a kung fu spaghetti western, paying homage to that genre of films. I mean, even the title of the series is taken from like sort of a Sergio Leone Once Upon a Time in China in the West. And when you think about kung fu films and westerns, there's a lot of things they have in common, like bad guys, the oppressed people, someone standing up for the good of them. So there's a lot of similarities between like a kung fu movie and a sort of a western movie that sort of carries on here. So Hung plays around with them cowboy western themes and gimmicks and uses them in any way possible. Is the film bad? Not by any means, but I remember when this came out, people were absolutely saying it was like the best thing Jet's done, right? When this came out, this film was hyped. I remember it coming out, and they were saying it's the best thing they'd ever seen, and maybe it was just rose-tinted glasses that Jet was back in the lead role and Sammo was directing. In many ways, the film should be a home run, and as I say, it is a very good movie. In a way, Sammo makes it more action-orientated, no long speeches or scenes that go on too long. You could argue as well that Sammo is just having fun with the character rather than like trying to preach something. The reason why Hark didn't direct this because he was busy doing Double Team with Van Damme at the time. And it was around this time that loads of the Hong Kong guys were breaking America. Jackie did Rush Hour a year later. John Woo did Face Off that same year. So it was around that time in the late 90s when the Hong Kong directors were pretty much sort of trying out their skills like sort of stateside, am I right in thinking that Jackie and Sammo fell out, or there was trouble with the whole memory loss idea? Because Jackie Chan did something similar with, Who Am I? So I know that Jackie and Sammo got like Wong Fei Hung here with the memory loss, and I do recall reading they fell out over this plot idea, or they were discussing the film and they both fell out about it, and that's why the two films that come out at the same time, it was like they were both using that idea as because they'd done Nice Guy, and I don't know, it's almost like I swear I read somewhere that Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan fell out about that idea. I do not know, but don't quote me on that. So we meet Fei Hung on a coach with 7, Clubfoot and 13th Aunt. Yeah, Rosamund Kwan returns as lovely as ever. You probably know by now, I just think she's absolutely beautiful and amazing. Obviously in America, the past films with Jet Li all open with him travelling somewhere. So 7 says he has been eating too many beans and he's had chronic diarrhea since they got there. Sammo keeping it classy as always at the start of the movie, just keeping it really classy, just mentioning diarrhea. So they pick up this super blonde cowboy called Billy, right? Billy the Kid, right? Get it? Like, there's a cowboy and his name's Billy, who's just lost and drifting, played by Wolfe. So when they stop for a break, Billy is speaking to like Fei Hung with a map, saying that's where we are. Me and my folks moved out here for a new start. Well, how did you get lost then? Why are you in the wilderness, like just wandering around? If you know exactly where you are, and like you have folks and everything, why are you just out here? At one point, he's about to blow his brains out as well before they pick him up. So it's like, the whole I don't know. I really do not know. Like, where are your folks? How did you get lost? So the whole idea is they are visiting like the Western Poetry Lamb. No Ling Foon in this movie, played by Max Mock, which, let's be honest, is no big loss. It really isn't any big loss at all. But we do get Richard Un here as a minor supporting role, which is a nice touch. Sammo obviously worked with him, in the Lucky Stars movies, and Richard Un is just absolutely hilarious. Sort of dialed back a little bit here, but it's nice to see him in the movie regardless. So their convoy gets attacked by Indians, and it's a nice touch having Jet fight with the umbrella again, which we always associate with Jet Li and that Fei Hung character. And the fight choreography is just as you would expect from a Once Upon a Time in China film. It's rapid, it's fast, there's quick fire editing, it's everything you would expect. And Sammo Hung is really sort of just going all at it here. He's just, throwing everything at the, everything at the kitchen sink. And Sammo doesn't make anything, he doesn't make it super crazy. Yeah, there is crazy stuff, but it's no more than you would get in sort of any other sort of new wave kung fu movie that was happening in the 90s. To be fair, that opening action scene is probably better than anything you see in the whole of 3. I would go as far as to say, I know like like I said, the fights are not bad in 3, they're still worth your time. But if you've got somebody like Sammo Hung and you've got Lau Kar Wing on board as well, and you've got Jet Li, there's going to be, due to their experience and everything like that, they're going to they know what they're doing, is basically what I'm saying. As I say, it's probably better than you. So after falling off a cliff in a carriage after rescuing 13th Art, Fei Hung hits his head on a rock and drifts downstream, which begins his sort of memory loss. So in this movie, he's not really Fei Hung. Well, he is Fei Hung, but he doesn't know he's Fei Hung, right? So the mayor and the sheriff of the town, we learn, are sort of against Chinese and give them very little in way of freedom. So, like, still that theme of oppression, being looked down upon by Westerners and, like, say, foreigners. Like, they want to be, they just do not have any respect for them whatsoever. Billy befriends the Chinese as he was saved by a Chinaman, so he's sort of on their side now. So after the crash, 13th and 7 are brought back to the Poetry Lamb. Fei Hung with memory loss has been taken by an Indian tribe, even having like a flashback scene to the carriage where he sees 7 and 13th Aunt, then they're like played by members of the tribe because he can't even sort of remember their faces. Even Billy is played by like one of the Indians in this bit. So we have comedy moments where Aunt is cooking glue to put up posters to show Fei Hung is missing, and 7 and the doctor taste it, thinking it is food. Fei Hung, meanwhile, has become like a full-blown Indian, right? He's been totally taken in by them, and like I say, sort of like Jackie, it's very much when you watch this, if I watch Who Am I think of this film, and if I watch this film I think of Who Am I, because there's a lot of similarities between the two. Billy stops these bank robbers, who now is like Billy now is like sort of full-blown Fei Hung kung fu skills. Seriously, you watch him jump over this carriage, right? Watch Billy jump over this carriage. He's known Fei Hung, like he's known the Chinese for like, I don't know, a day or something or whatever. And he does like this jump over this carriage, and it's like, where did you learn how to do that? It comes out of nowhere. I mean, he flies. He literally just flies. I mean, he's only met Fei Hung that morning. He's had no training. Because this, Billy becomes like sort of deputy of the town. So after 13th Aunt, he's sort of bullied by some cowboys in the bar. Billy and 7 come to help, and 7 totally whips their ass. Hung Yang Yan, amazing and performer and fighter as ever here, really doing his job well. So this rival Indian tribe comes to like Jet's camp as one of them wants to marry the chief's daughter, and of course Fei Hung sends them packing, fighting with their spears and everything like that, as you would come to expect. Fei Hung, or despite his memory loss, he still knows how to fight. He can still kick some ass, using tomahawks as well. So Jet and tribe members are talking to each other in 2 different languages, but about their land and how Fei Hung wants to find his home. Jet becomes like a full-blown member at this point. Fei Hung and Aunt Yi had rings, and he gives his away to this like woman of this tribe that she's totally smitten on him, and them two are sort of getting close. And so they're like, he's this ring that him and Aunt Yi had, he's sort of given his away. So we then meet this Mexican bandit, right, with some very interesting eyebrows. And I think in even the credits, what he's listed as is just Mexican bandit. I don't even think this guy has a name, and this is like the antagonist of the movie. He becomes like a main villain, and our introduction to him is him basically taking a dump. That's the introduction that Sammo decides to give us. And like I say, the introduction of Clubfoot, he's saying that he's got diarrhea. Introduction of the Mexican bandit, he's taking a dump. Again, Sammo keeping it classy. He like cuts himself to lure this wolf that is approaching, just so we as a viewer know how hard he is, and he's not scared of death, and he's, you know, he's one with nature, or whatever you want to call it. He kicks the wolf in the air. As I say, the eyebrows are just straight out of like an old school kung fu movie. These are some serious eyebrows. Like I say, is the film bad? Not by any means. It's not bad. Is it as good as one and two? No. It's, you know, I think like when I remember when this, like I told you, when this film come out, people were like, oh, you got to see it, it's amazing, it's, you know, Jet Li, it's, you know, it's the best film he's done. And in hindsight, it's not. 1 and 2 I think are vastly superior, but it's still very entertaining. It's, as I say, to me it's no better or worse than 3. I think it's very much on par with 3, actually, thinking about it. So Jet and 2 Indians come to town. Not sure why, but one of them is counting money. One of the Indians is counting money. I'm not sure what they were actually doing. And explain what they are doing there. I might have missed something. Aunt spots Fei Hung and rides after him, confronts him, and gets upset to learn he has given his ring to someone else. As she would, she's very entitled to, you know, feel upset. The Indians tell him to follow her as she knows him, and he just wants to get his memory back. So the return of Jet Li as Fei Hung, and for 2/3 of the movie, he doesn't, like I say, he's Fei Hung. It's the return as Jet Li as Wong Fei Hung. He's back in a Once Upon a Time in China film, but for 2/3 of the movie, he's not even going to know he's Fei Hung, which, you know, does that pay off? Not really, but I can see sort of what they were trying to do. Aunt goes to leave and Fei Hung turns up. Seven tests him as he wants him to remember his shadowless kick, and I absolutely love how he pretends to be people Fei Hung has fought in the past to help him remember, which takes us back to the original movies, and it's quite a novel idea and a nice touch, like sort of hinting at like sort of people he's fought before and encounters he's had before, and I think that really is a nice little touch, because he's sort of like, remember when you fought and things like that. And it's a nice touch, and I love him putting clothes in his shirt to make it super thick so he doesn't get hurt, so he's got some padding. Everyone else in the village starts playing under the general's orders, like the Wong Fei Hung theme. And after busting like the water tower, he remembers the accident and who he is. And I love how they smash it up, and like no one in the town asks them to repair it, like for the damage. Like they smash up this water tower, and not one person, not one authority's like, you know, that's our... They just get off with that, no problem. Like they're just allowed to smash it up, and so they don't have to pay for it in any way. So it's funny scene as well where he goes to give a long speech at one point, like, you know, when I mentioned this film doesn't sort, it's not patronising. There's where Fei Hung goes to give a long speech and everyone sort of starts falling asleep. And I think that's what these films were getting in danger of, like becoming very sort of patronising and self-indulgent and almost like preaching and lecturing. This film does not do that at all. Compared to the first one, this film, in terms of like tone and what it's trying to get across, is totally different. So yeah, they're not going down the pretentious. Sammo didn't want the film to be patronising. Let's just make a fun, entertaining film, and on that merit, the film does succeed. So the mayor is in debt and working with the bandits and wants them to rob the bank. The poetry lamb opens and the Chinese foreman is corrupt and working with the mayor, who has turned up to search the place, accusing the Chinese of the robbery, and the dodgy foreman has planted some like money bags inside there. All the Chinese get thrown in a cell along with Bully, and it turns out 7 of them must be hanged and the rest can go free. Richard and Seven, Fei Hung, etc. all say they would do it. They have sort of this last meal on the gallows, and then the bandits turn up, okay? So they blow up the gallows with dynamite, and they're annoyed because in the paper it said they got away with 500,000, and they think they only got away with 100,000, I think it was. And so they have a beef with the mayor, so Jet escapes and lets the others free, and now needs to capture the bandits to prove his innocence and so he can get a confession out of him. So basically he's just got to beat up the bandits, really. That's what Fei Hung has to do, and that's what he does. So he has to just get a confession. So the whole point is like sort of they've been framed. The mayor shoots the Chinese traitor bandits, kills the mayor, and Fei Hung takes on the bandit. And isn't it always funny in these movies how suddenly like they know kung fu, right? Isn't it funny how no matter who they're after, no matter where they're from, no matter what's going on, they know kung fu. And this Mexican bandit, he knows kung fu as well. I mean, it's a great action scene, like Fei Hung kicking liquor bottles at him, and the idea of Fei Hung versus like a talented marksman and killer western bandit in a cowboy themed movie is a cool idea. If I think a bit of a gimmicky one, um, let's just have Wong Fei Hung in a western setting and fighting cowboys, which I'm sure at the time when they come up with the idea, they thought, yes, that's genius. But looking at it now, the film you could say is a bit silly in terms of, like I say, when even compared to the first. I mean, this was done about 6 years, nearly 7 years after the first movie. And I just think it relies on the gimmick of the memory loss and the fact it's in a western setting maybe a bit too much. We have Seven and Billy taking on the other goons outside. Billy throwing like an axe through one of them. Nice music as well in the end of the fight when Fei Hung fights the bandit. If you listen to it when they're next like the windmill, it's really epic as well with the music, the way it builds, and it really gets you. You start really getting pumped up and rooting for Fei Hung in that end scene. It really is epic in the way it builds and builds. Although the film is entertaining, to say it's perfect, it isn't. It's not a perfect movie. I'm sure loads of you will be out there saying, "What you're talking about? It's an amazing film." It's the memory loss doesn't add much to the film really. The villain isn't really much of a villain. That's why I think a lot of people like 1 and 2 the most. The villains and what Fei Hung was up against were a lot more memorable. They stuck in your head a hell of a lot more than what they do. But I mean, regarding like this, and a lot of people, like I mentioned, do not like 3. I view this and 3 pretty much in terms of like entertainment value, pretty similar. I would rate them sort of like roughly the same. So after beating the bandits, Indians turn up. So it ends with Fei Hung doing like a lion dance in the opening of Chinatown with Billy now as the mayor. Fei Hung now says to Aunt he doesn't remember being with the tribe, although he does look back at one point implying that he does actually remember. So you get the impression he's actually lying to Aunt Yi. Poor girl from the tribe though, she is like super bummed. I mean, she really loved Fei Hung, and he's like he's off, he's going. So you end up, yeah, you're pleased he's got back with Aunt Yi, but this other girl, he's like just totally broke her heart completely. And at the end, funny joke where the people don't want him to make a speech as well. As I say, getting into that thing as like no patronising long speeches from Fei Hung doesn't become boring, and it does say the film does keep going along quite well. Yeah, again, making it a bit more faster paced than an action film rather than a film with a huge moral message. Though there are messages in the film, of course there are, because it's a Once Upon a Time in China movie. So Fei Hung and Aunt Yi set off, leave the town on their horse. What about Clubfoot? Right, so they're obviously going home, right? They're obviously going home. Where did he go? Is he staying there then? Because I thought he arrived with you. I assumed he would be leaving with you as well. Just leaving him there. I mean, you arrived in America with him. I know how he got. I know he got shot in the foot at the end, right? So I don't know if he's recuperating or whatever. But yeah, so him and Aunt Yi just like go off. Overall, though, it's a good Fei Hung movie and it's entertaining in its own right, but very similar to what I said about Once Upon a Time in China 3. It's just not as epic as that film. I think this film probably sticks in a lot of people's heads the most, or this film's would more than 3, because as I say, you got the Western idea, like I say, Fei Hung fighting cowboys. But I remember when this came out, people like, oh, it's the best thing Jet Li's ever done. And, oh God, I think it was just the idea of he was returning to that Wong Fei Hung role in a Once Upon a Time in China movie, but still very good. I think overall 2 is and will always be my favourite, as it is a lot of people, shortly, like closely followed by 1. But I think 2, is something special. But I think a lot of people love 2 the most. But Once Upon a Time in China America is good. It's very good. It's a not great film, but it's just not a brilliant film, if you know what I mean. But it's a great effort from Sammo. Jet as reliable as ever as Wong Fei Hung. I just think the memory loss thing was a bit probably not needed. It's a shame, like I say, he comes back, he returns as Wong Fei Hung, and for like an hour of the film he doesn't even know he is Wong Fei Hung. But let me know if you've seen Once Upon a Time in China and America. Let me know your thoughts on it, if you enjoy it, how do you think it compares to the others, and I'd love to hear from you. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review. See you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.